It's time to step into the Coming Out Lounge, a cool, safe space to be true to your sexual self. With your host, Rick Clemens. Rick has helped hundreds of people come out of the closet, and now each week he's bringing you cool insights for loving and accepting yourself, boosting your self-confidence, and living a guilt-free, purpose-filled life on the other side of the closet doors. Cuddle up with yourself and get ready for heartwarming coming out stories, ideas for living authentically, and tips for being fully self-expressed. Now here's your host, Coming Out Coach Rick.
Hello, Closet Busters. It's time once again to stop closet dwelling and to step out, step up, and step into living your truth. And today's kind of a different episode. I'm going to be stepping into my truth in a really big way. And I know throughout the time that you've listened to the podcast, you've heard different bits and pieces about my story. You've kind of gotten to know me. And today I'm going to step into that truth in a different way because I have a book that just came out a few days ago. The book is called Frankly, My Dear, I'm Gay. It's a late bloomer's guide to coming out. And for the episodes leading up to this one, I know you've heard me talk about it numerous times. But I'm really excited. It's a pretty big accomplishment to have a book get published. And I know there's probably some of you listening who've done this. So it's not like I'm the only person in the world who's ever done it. But it's a really spiritual journey to write a book and to get it into the hands of a publisher and go through the journey and bring something that was really heartfelt to the world. And when I started thinking about doing this show, I thought, I can sit here and I can talk and talk all about the book. But I thought, you know what? I'd rather somebody else talk to me. And we're not just going to talk about the book. We're going to bring up pieces of the book. We're going to talk about the journey, do some different things. And when I was thinking, who would I really entrust to do this? One of my past guests came to mind. Not only does he have a great voice, he's got a great way of interviewing guests himself. He's also got a fantastic radio show podcast. It's called Joel Speaks Out, and he speaks out about a lot of different things, not just gay lesbian stuff. He speaks out about many, many different things that kind of get him going, and I thought, you know what, he'd be a really great guy to just bring on to this episode with me, kind of hold my hand, because I don't know what he's going to ask. I don't know where we're going to go in the next 30 minutes or so, but I just feel really blessed to have Joel Barrett of Joel Speaks Out joining me today, so that I can kind of switch places and be on the other side of the fence. So Joel, first of all, thank you for joining me and being part of this really exciting moment in my life.
Hey, Rick, thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to be talking to you about this.
Cool. I guess I'm going to say, and the show's yours now, Joel, so let's go.
Oh, the power I wield right now.
Okay.
I'm in the driver's seat, so no backseat driving, okay?
Exactly. Cool.
So, Rick, I love that you asked me to do this, and I love that I got to see a sneak preview of your book before it came out. And I was able to read portions of it that really resonated with me. So I want to say congratulations on getting this book done. I know what a job that is because I'm working on my own right now.
Yeah, awesome. And if you ever need any help, Joel, I'll be right there with you on yours. It is a task, and it is a labor of love. But thank you. I appreciate that.
It is. So when I saw the title, Frankly, My Dear, I'm Gay, I suddenly realized that you're gay.
Ah! Oh, no. My truth has been found out.
So, when you see a title like that, do you think, okay, so this guy's going to tell his coming out story? But I just want to let everybody know that it is so much more than that. So much more than just another coming out story. First question for you, Rick, then, why this book and why now?
Why now is because it's been sitting around for the last 2.5 years waiting to get published. And I finally really got serious about getting it in a publisher's hand about a year ago. But why now is really stemming from clear back in 1999 when I finally put the stake in the sand and did say to someone very important to me, frankly, my dear, I'm gay. And that person was my ex-wife. And I didn't know at the time. Somebody had told me at that moment in all the chaos of coming out and going through a divorce and becoming a single parent and being a gay man in a straight man's world, all that stuff, If somebody told me I was going to write a book, I would have told them, yeah, bite me. That ain't happening. It was interesting. As soon as I kind of started feeling the urge to do something bigger and different in the world, and when I lovingly got pushed out of corporate America, a lot of things started shifting, and I, went into coaching training, and it was in the middle of the coaches training that I had this inspiration that, you know what, I could write a book about my journey, but it wouldn't just be about my journey. It would be about giving people later in life some tools to work with. Because I know for me, and I think you probably had some of this experience too, Joel, when I came out, there wasn't a lot of resources for people who were older coming out. In fact, there wasn't a lot of resources for anybody. I mean, in 1999, we were still kind of, tongue-in-cheeking it about the LGBT community. And I thought, this is a really important thing that needs to happen, because those who are older, and I'm not talking ancient or dinosaurs, but there are those that do it at that point in time too. But I'm talking about those who may be in their mid-30s on up, who have taken the traditional route because society said, no, you can't be, and made conscious, and I do mean conscious decisions, to try to make the heterosexual life work for them. And then suddenly we wake up and it's like, I can't do this any longer.
And, it's interesting that you mentioned the 30s, because I've said for a long time, if you wait until you have your midlife crisis at 40, you're a late bloomer. Mm-hmm. Because I really believe that a lot of men in particular go through that crisis in their mid-30s rather than in those 40 years.
I agree. Because I think you get screwed up. You may have your first children, or you may have just got married. You may be having your big moment in your career. There's lots of things that kind of happen. And, if I were to go back and look at the time frame between 30 and 38 when I came out, I went through big changes in my career. I went from being like just a line manager to, director and VP of, some organizations, and having a lot of responsibility. And then we had 2 kids come into our life, and we were in the midst of buying our second home, and a lot of stuff. And I'm not saying this is the stuff that typically turns things inside out, but it kind of does.
Yeah. How long were you married, Rick?
13 years total.
13 years. And you have how many children?
2.
Okay. So in your mid-30s, as you express, a lot of those things were going through your mind. What was going through your mind around that time about your sexuality?
Well, as I've said numerous times on this show, and this is not something I'm proud of, but it is what it is, I knew I enjoyed having sexual relations with men because I was having sexual relations with men. And yes, so I'm a cheat. I'm somebody who has committed infidelity more times than I will ever want to admit to. But I also know that I didn't really know what to do with it. I thought I was just getting my rocks off and then going back to life as is, which was literally what was happening.
And that right there, Rick, that describes, I don't want to put a number on it, but many, many men right there. I mean, I know that statement will resonate with so many people because I was there myself. Exactly what you just said.
And I want to make sure if we have some of our beautiful female listeners listening that we're not trying to turn away from you, but I believe there's a difference because I have worked with women. And I don't think women are driven as much to go do the experimentation when they find themselves in this world. I mean, I've worked with women who did, and this is where I'm going to kind of step into the stereotypical role about men. Men just kind of, a lot of men, not every man that's ever found himself in this position, but a lot of guys have this innate masculine sexual energy that just got to be released. And then when you couple that with you're hiding your truest sexual orientation, it's like a ticking time bomb that if it doesn't get taken care of on a regular basis, and again, I'm not justifying the infidelity, I'm not justifying the cheating, I'm just kind of saying it like it is. It just happens. And I think not everybody does that, but I'm saying a majority, as you said, Joel, a majority of men, I think, tend to go that route.
And I think that as human beings, we probably have a certain degree of the same kind of sexual energy and sex drive, but I think how we express it is differently between men and women and between various ages of life. So I think you're hitting the nail on the head right there, which brings me a good question here. Who is this book written for, Rick?
Well, when I first wrote it, okay, it's for anybody who's 35 plus, who's coming out of the closet, ... okay? There's a lot of leaning towards the masculine, but I bring in a lot of the feminine stuff too, so I think anybody, male or female, can really get something from it. And then, as we got in publishers' hands and we started moving through edits and everything, and my editor made a couple of comments about things, and then one day she said, I love the title Late Bloomer's Guide because, I'm 29 and I have friends who are really struggling because they feel like they've missed the boat. They feel like they should have come out when they were 18, 19, 15, 14, and they feel like they're so far behind because they didn't. And it kind of made me think, wow, I never looked at it from that perspective. Just because I didn't do it till I was 38, and just because I have clients who haven't come out till they were 40, 50, 60, 70, it's all in your own perspective. To someone who's 28, especially in this day and age, with the acceptance factors going up on being gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, they could feel the same heaviness of, I've wasted 5 years of my life hiding in the closet. So to them, they could be a late bloomer. So in answer to your question, Joel, I think it's predominantly for the older audience, so to speak. But I know that anybody who picks it up, and I've sent it out to some younger gay and lesbian people to have them kind of look at it, they're like, I wish I would have had this book when I was going through this.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, too, there's even an audience there for the partners of these people, of anyone that's coming out, or for those that love them and want to understand better where they're coming from. I think you give some real insight into the lives that maybe someone else doesn't relate to or understand.
Yeah, and that was part of the kind of the outline when I was looking at things. I'm like, I don't want this to be just my story. I don't want it to just be a how-to. I don't want it to be like it's all about the person who's coming out. Yes, it's heavy in that direction, but I also think if someone is struggling, I've actually been approached by a couple of individuals just in the past couple of weeks who are struggling with their spouse coming out, and I've actually sent them the first few chapters of the book, which most people can go get if they go to franklyMyDearI'mGay.com. You can get the first 3 chapters of the book for free, and I've been amazed at the feedback I've gotten from these heterosexual spouses about, oh my gosh, I have a much better insight now to what's going on.
You're the coming out coach, Rick. Yep. So you didn't just write a book, you also include some coaching in it. So tell the listeners a little bit about what you're doing throughout the book in the various chapters.
Well, I'm sitting back just telling my story, eating bonbons and having a glass of wine. Okay, so that's my alter diva that shows up in the book. Her name's Lemonade Pop, so she's going to show up every once in a while and give like some bitch slap sort of stuff in the book. But what I did was I intentionally told like parts of the journey, and then the follow-on chapter explores that part of the journey in a little more detail, and then guides the reader into, so let's do some work with yourself. Let's answer some questions. Let's explore some things that maybe you haven't come across yet. But as you start to, and I'm going to use one that's always going to show up in about 99% of anybody's coming out journey, the coming to terms with yourself and your sexual orientation and your religious or spiritual being. And so when we go through that part of the book, then there's some questions that come up in the next chapter around how do you reconcile your faith? What is your faith? Are you religious? Are you spiritual? Are you practicing? Are you not practicing? And how does that integrate into your sexual orientation? And you notice, Joel, I didn't say your gay life. It's more about your sexual orientation, because each of us has our own sexual orientation that we deal with, even heterosexuals. In fact, I was kind of surprised by one of my girlfriends that I sent the book to, because she's a writing coach, speaking coach. She does a lot of editing people's books, and I said, okay, I love you, but I'm sending this to you just to read. I don't need any edits. I just want to kind of get your perspective and see if she would give me some feedback and actually give me a testimonial. And I remember the day she called me and said, okay, first of all, this book is kind of like really messing with me, and I love it. And I said, what do you mean it's messing with you? She goes, I don't think you realize how much of what you put in this book applies to everyone coming to terms with their sexual orientation, gay or straight. And that kind of took me aback. I didn't quite know what to do with it. And then she kind of talked through it a little bit more, and I thought, wow, this is pretty interesting that a segment of people, and now I've since had that validated a couple other times, are picking up things in this book that not only will help the person coming out, the family members who are in the midst of a coming out journey, the people who may be friends, and then someone who isn't coming out, but they can come into this and they can start to see the parallels, which is kind of what I stand on. The parallels of the coming out journey are parallels to every closet that anyone is going through with the challenges of their life.
I think that's very true. It's the same challenges. They just, it's like, oh, I'm trying to think of that Whitney Houston song, same script, different story or whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so we both kind of just lost our gay cards right there because we got the words to that Whitney Houston song. But I know the song, I do know it, but I can't put my head around it right now. So, just take a little corner off my gay card. That's just a little bit there.
Well, I will say, Rick, you've been extremely transparent in this book, and have shared just really some raw things about yourself, your story, and I really admire that. And I just want to know, like, did you ever have a moment where you're like, oh, I don't know, should I share this?
I just had that moment again right now, but it's kind of late. It is scary because you don't know what people are going to think. But then the moment I have that thought, you don't know what people are going to think. This is exactly why I wrote this book, because the reason we stay in the closet is because we're afraid of what somebody's going to think. So quite honestly, and I've had some people in my life close to me since this book is coming out kind of go down that path with me and call me a hypocrite and call me a grandstander. I'm like, you know what? I still care for you, and that's your perspective. I think sometimes the raw nakedness of who we are as humans, I'm going to be transparent right now. That nakedness is part of my healing process. My healing process for bringing hurt and pain and shame and agony to people's lives that I did through this. I'm not saying I wish I hadn't done it, because we're on our paths, man. I mean, all of us are on paths. This happened to be my path.
There's power in truth and honesty, and it gives power to other people as well. And I think that's what you're doing in this book. And I want to say that I loved it. I loved reading these stories and things because we have a lot in common, Rick.
It's funny because I brought up Lemonade Pop, and she is my alter diva ego. I mean, she's there and she shows up, and nobody's ever seen that before, because I'm a pretty, okay, let's go, let's get things done. I mean, I have my fun. Don't discount that. But I'm pretty much kind of a pretty serious guy. In fact, that's one of the things I get beat up for all the time is, you're really too serious. You look really serious. I'm like, okay, girl, well, you want to see not serious? Here she comes. Now get out of the way. And here we go, But I think the transparency of being able to let ourselves be ourselves and help others start to do that. And especially when I get into the chapters around, okay, this chapter is not about you, Mr. or Miss coming out. It's about the others in your life. It's time to make room for them. Because if you don't make room for them, and I'm not saying you have to make room for them for the rest of your life, there will come junctures where you finally say, okay, I have opened, I've accepted, and I'm not getting this back in return. There will come a juncture where you need to make the decision of how important is that to have their approval, to have them in your life in the way you need them, or how you find a different way to let them be in your life. And I think those moments are just as critical as, okay, so how do you have the conversation with your God? How do you have the conversation with your families? How do you decide whether you're going to be out at work or not be out at work? All those things are critical. But being able to realize there's other people and allowing them to kind of be a part of this journey in their way is so, so vital to being very successful in your journey.
Very much so. Of all the things that as you're writing the book and you're kind of reflecting on things that have happened to you in your life, was there a particular story or incident where you're like, oh man, this was a milestone, a turning point, I've got to include this in my book?
There was, and I'm trying to remember if it's actually in there. I'm pretty sure it still is in there. There was a moment, and I don't want to go too deeply into this, but there was a moment where my ex-wife was going through some stuff, and she had her own demons that she was battling, and we had a joint therapy session years down the road after divorce and everything. And I remember walking into that session kind of shaken, because I'm like, I'm not sure what this is all about. And I remember her looking at me and saying, "Thank you for being here." And then I remember the next words. I'll never forget those words. "You're such a son of a bitch." This is like years. I mean, I'm talking years down the road. I'm talking probably 8, maybe even 9 years down the road from when all this had, quote, exploded. And she kind of goes on her rant, and then she stops, and she goes, "But the gay man that I fell in love with was the man I fell in love with. And I just needed you to know that." And it wasn't that she said that she fell in love with me because I was gay. It was the gay man that she fell in love with was the man she fell in love with. And that was a big moment.
Yeah, very big.
And it hurt. It hurt. I think that hurt deeper than her telling me to get out of the house. Because it was the first time I ate my own crow in a different way of seeing her hurt and realizing how deeply it is that people connect to people for reasons we don't sometimes even get. And then here it came rushing back, like right in my face to go, "Oh my God, this is what love meant to her." And so it was a huge moment. And now rolling forward, and this is where this is not in the book. Actually, there's been some edits to the book to be very transparent. We have shifted to a space where we're not as, let's just say, friendly as we used to be. And it's interesting to watch wounds open back up. And we're kind of in a space right now where there's some wounds open back up. And we've chosen to not be active parts of each other's life, which is completely different than where we've been. We've always been very active, family, birthday parties and holidays and even some vacations. And because of some circumstances that have shown up, we've decided we're going to be kind of like a typical divorced couple right now and bare minimum communication. And that's actually okay. Because I know for me, I'm growing now again. And I actually know for her, she is too. And I know for our children, it's helping them see another way of, okay, this is how sometimes relationships go. And I have to hand it to my daughters. They're both growing and learning through this, and they're not picking sides. They're standing by and saying, you guys need to work it out. So I want to put that in front of the listeners only because I want to be as transparent as I feel necessary to help other people, because I don't want people reading the book and going, "Oh wow, he made it and created the perfect modern family." Okay, yes, we had that for quite a long time. But as we all know, we're all humans and things shift and change. So right now we're in a different space. I don't know if we'll stay there forever. I know in my heart right now, I don't know that we'll go back to what we were. And if we do, it will be a different shape of what we were.
And, I think that reflects the theme of the book or the feel of the book. It doesn't feel like you're presenting a formula or here are 10 things for successful, coming out. Or it's more of a navigation tool to say, whatever your waters are that you're navigating, here's some things to help you figure out how to best navigate that. I feel like that's what you really intended, was that true coaching that says, figure out what's going to work for you and here are some tools to do it.
Yep. You hit the nail on the head. And it was after I'd already come out of coaching school, and I'd been coaching a lot of, I couldn't even tell you at that point in time how many people I'd coached through the closet doorways. And I thought, you know what? The best gift I can give anybody with this book is what I say when I'm coaching someone. I'm here to help you facilitate your best answers for you and for you to be able to take those and create your best life. That's what I'm here for. I'm not a fairy godfather, no matter what anybody thinks. I don't have a magic wand. Those don't come when you graduate from coaching school. It is about helping you facilitate your best life in your way. And there is no blueprint. I'm going to say it. I've said it numerous times on this show and now with the book coming out. There is no blueprint included in the book on how to come out. There's lots of suggestions and lots of questions to help you find your way to do this.
And do you talk in your book about your family, your daughter, your ex-wife, and navigating some of that? Because I know a lot of people, that's one of the biggest things that keeps them in the closet or in a relationship that they're not happy, is for fear of what those that they love will think or respond if they come out.
All that gets covered in different ways and different conversations. And one of the things I really tried to do was be respectful in how I presented that and ensuring that I present, but then I also suggest ways to go through this. Now, one of the things that's going to be different for me than for someone who may pick up the book is my kids were very young when all this happened. They were like 4 and 18 months old. There's a difference when your kids are in their teens and going through this. So there's pieces in the book that talk to those points too. There's a whole difference when suddenly you're 55, 60 years old and you've got adult children who are in their 20s or maybe even in their 30s, and maybe you have a grandchild and suddenly you're coming out of the closet. That's a whole different ballgame too. So what I hope people can take away is really look at some of the questions I throw at them at the end of certain chapters to really explore these things and really start to explore, okay, so my teen or my ex-spouse, where are they at in their life, and how can I best facilitate a transition, not an easy transition, a transition, and support them in the best way possible while also taking some good self-care. Because one of the things I know, and I think you will probably identify with this, Joel, is hiding in the closet is not the best self-care you can do.
No.
It may feel like it because it's masked in, okay, well, then I don't have to confront the ugly, nasty stuff.
It's a safe place. It feels like a safe place at that time, and probably in some ways the safest place in those moments of life.
And that's what it is. It's a false sense. I don't know if I want to call it a false sense of security, because I know there are people. I'm working with a client right now, and I've interviewed a couple of people just recently who make the conscious choice to stay in their relationships. And I'm all for that with a client. If that's what works for them, then my goal as an author, as a podcaster, as a speaker, as a coach is to help you find your best way to be in your life. So if being in your life means you stay in your relationship and you and your spouse can make that work, and it facilitates a richer way of you being in the world, then by golly, by God, that's your path. And you own it, embrace it, and be it.
You know, Rick, I'm going to throw a question on you that you throw on to the readers. It's actually the first question that you ask, I believe, in the book when it comes down to the questions at the end of some of the chapters. And it's in chapter 2, and it's the very first one. And it says, what beliefs do you have about being gay that are keeping you from being authentic? And I want to ask you that. At what point in your life, what were the beliefs that you had about being gay that were keeping you from being authentic?
I believed I could never get married, could never have children, could never be successful, could never be loved by God. Those are my top 4 right there. And I bet most people listening probably just said, oh my God, he's reading my mind.
Yeah, I think you're correct on that. And so those are the kinds of questions you follow that up with. Which of these beliefs are actually truth, undisputable and undeniable facts? So, you know, it's that kind of format that you have in your book, which I think is so powerful to ask ourselves those questions, because, you know, even after all these years of being out, I still sometimes find myself having some old beliefs about being gay that I have to remind myself, wait a minute, that's not true.
Well, even as this book is coming out, Joel, I have to tell you that I've been going through that myself. How are people going to respond to me now that I've taken this next step of being really transparent? And, you know, I've got some people in my life that have not seen the book yet. My parents being 2 of them. I don't know that they will ever see the book. I'm sure at some point, kind of knowing them, they'll ask for it. And I'm going to hand it to them and say, this was done from love, and however you choose to interpret anything in this book, please know it was done from love to help others who've struggled the way I've struggled. Because I know there will be things that will show up. But as I go through this, it's a whole new coming out journey for me. There's stuff in this book that I know anytime you do something this public, I'm going to have my haters. I'm going to have my people who are going to call BS on me. I'm actually pretty positive there could be some people come out of my past that may go, okay, we're going to, you know, screw you, so to speak. But that's only going to happen if I spend my energy there.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I truly believe. And I think to give yourself the space to go, I'm going to be coming out the rest of my life, doesn't mean you have to go write a book. Doesn't mean you have to go speak on a stage. It doesn't even mean that you have to be any more out of the closet than you desire to be. What it means is being able to embrace yourself, wrap yourself up in the loving arms of you, and find the space that says, I'm worth it to be me this way.
And I think that's what you're accomplishing in this book, Rick, is you're really giving empowerment and that kind of permission to people. And I really applaud you for doing this and for your transparency, honesty, and for choosing to also include this coaching in there, because it's one thing just to read somebody's story, but it's another to have those questions to ask yourself and to kind of go on the journey with you. And I found that as I went through your questions, even though I feel like you and I have lived somewhat parallel lives, I still found great benefit in going through those questions again myself, even at this point in my life.
Well, I appreciate hearing that, Joel. And you know what's interesting about those questions, and kind of go back to that first one, and I don't know if you still have it there in front of you, but I'd love to have you read it to the listeners one more time. Read that first question.
What beliefs do you have about being gay that are keeping you from being authentic?
So the reason I wanted you to reread that question is if you took the word gay out, you could slip in any other word: fat, ugly, Hispanic, a CEO, an entrepreneur, a Jewish person, a struggling high school student with all C's. You could put in any phrase in there.
Just being a man or just being a woman.
Exactly. And it will start the wheels turning, because then you can follow it up with the second question, which is, how true is that? And you start to shift your own life. In fact, I'm kind of getting goosebumps as I said that, because I realize in the moment that you read that, and then as I'm saying it, there's something visceral happening within myself, because I'm going through some big stuff right now as a professional. I know I'm about to step onto some stages. I know I'm about to have, my book is out now, and I know there's people who are going to start coming after me to do some interviews and things like that. It's about, what beliefs do I have about going out and playing it bigger? And I'm asking myself that question. And how true are those beliefs about going out and playing it bigger? And how are they keeping me from being authentically who I am? So I almost want to go to my girlfriend who said this book could be for anyone and go, okay, now I'm giving you this book. Now you go edit it. You put in, take out the gays, you put out everything, and rewrite it for me as if it's for the general public. And I actually think I could do it and have a really powerful book. Not saying I'm going to do that.
Yeah,
I have another book that I'm doing, but I think it's something that a lot of people could benefit from. And even the title, and this is interesting, and I know I haven't shared this with you, Joel. Maybe I have, but I don't think I have. The title of the book has actually become the platform that I speak on, and this keynote speech that I do is, frankly, my dear, I'm ... And who are you? Who are you that you're not standing up and able to, out of shame, guilt, fear, not able to stand up and say to the people that you most need to say this to, frankly, my dear, I'm an entrepreneur. Frankly, my dear, I'm going to be a stay-at-home dad and let my wife be the main breadwinner. Frankly, my dear, I'm fighting cancer and it sucks. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing when you have those moments where you go, oh, wow, I can actually do this with lots of different people now. It feels like just fully stepping into your purpose.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And that's the powerful, powerful truth. And I know that everyone that reads this book is going to be challenged to think about their own lives, no matter where they're coming from, no matter what the motivation is for reading the book. If they're reading it and answering those questions, they are going to be challenged and changed as a result of it.
Well, thanks for saying that, Joel. And I wanted to say thank you so much for taking time out of your life to be a part of this journey in my life. You're almost like Oprah today. You've done a heck of a job. So is there anything else you want to ask me before we kind of wrap this up?
Now that you're, let's see, at this point in life, let's just put it that way rather than put a number on it. At this point in life and all that you've gone through, what do you feel best about in life right now as a gay man?
I feel really good about being honest and transparent. And that covers a lot of territory because I'm honest and transparent, not 100%, because I don't think we can be this all the time, 24/7. But I feel like I'm being honest and transparent with my kids. I feel like I have times that I can actually be really honest and transparent with my husband. I can be really honest and transparent with those who are following me, those who are listening to me, those who are reading what I write. And there was a time where I couldn't even be honest and transparent with myself. And anytime I start to doubt, I now know, and this is a coaching technique, so if you're listening and going, okay, I've been waiting for something like this, Here it is. When I am in my most frustrations, my deepest, darkest moments, I have to ask myself, how in alignment is what I'm doing or how I'm being? How much in alignment is it with me being honest, in integrity, and being transparent? Because when I get to those spaces, I always find one, if not all three of those things, is out of alignment with how I choose to want to be in this world. And when I can embrace that, then things begin to shift. And usually they begin to shift pretty dang quick. Because I realize, oh my gosh, I wasn't being honest with myself. I really didn't want to be doing this. Or, yeah, that's not really how I like to show up in the world, but I kind of fudged because, somebody said, well, if you do it this way. Man, when I can be honest, in integrity, and transparent with myself, stuff gets done. And I'm much, much more happier, relaxed, stress-free, and at peace in myself.
Well, I think you've definitely done that through this book. No one could accuse you of holding back. That's for sure.
Yeah, there's a few of those stories that I think some people are going to go, what?
But I love it. It's a fun, entertaining read. You really keep it light. You approach some very heavy subjects, but in a very lighthearted way, and I appreciate it. So I think we're going to encourage people to get a copy of the book, read it, go through it. No matter where you're coming from in life, you can benefit from these questions that are in the chapters, and it'll just put you on a journey of your own. And the truth is, we're all on a journey. And so it's never a bad thing to be involved in someone else's journey, because it always sheds light on your own. And so I really want to encourage people to get a copy of Frankly, My Dear, I'm Gay by Rick Clemens, and read it, enjoy it, pass along, and tell others about it.
Oh, thanks, Joel, for those kind words. And, I just want to say thanks for being you, Joel. I love what you're doing in the world with Joel Speaks Out. And I love to be in the energy of other people who are just letting their beacon shine and really just being who you're meant to be in the world. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here with me today and to do this interview.
Thank you, Rick.
And if you who are listening, I'm not going to go through the typical show wrap-up, but you know the drill. If you're listening, you liked what you heard, you go to iTunes, Stitcher, rate, review. You know where you can find me, Coming Out Coach. You can go to the Coming Out Lounge and stay on top of all the other episodes that are coming. But before I wrap up, I'm actually going to ask myself the question that I always ask every guest. So, Rick, if you could give the listeners one piece of advice that would help them in the coming out journey, what would that be? And my answer is what lies in the intro and the outro to each and every Coming Out Lounge. Never stop stepping out, stepping up, and stepping in to living your own, not someone else's, your own powerful truth. I'm Rick Clemens, and I've been spending the last 30 minutes with the beautiful Joel Barrett of Joel Speaks Out, and I appreciate each and every one of you being on this journey with me as we all step into our space of saying, frankly, my dear, I'm. Until next time, take care and have a great week.
You've just experienced the Coming Out Lounge. Go online to www.comingoutlounge.com to learn more, and tune in again next week for more stories and tips for being true to yourself.